Good afternoon. We'll call the hearing to order. In recent years, the committee's witnessed an alarming trend in the SBA's budget regarding entrepreneurial development programs. Despite reports that the federal government is riddled with redundant programs for entrepreneurs, the SBA has increasingly spawned its own entrepreneurial development initiatives. And in doing so, the SBA has repeatedly requested increased funding for its own initiatives while allowing funding for statutorily authorized programs such as SBDCs to remain static. The committee on a bipartisan basis has expressed concerns regarding the SBA's diversion of funds. And earlier this year, Ranking Member Velasquez and I sought clarification from the SBA on how they intend to utilize funds allocated to these initiatives. Together, we sought to ensure that scarce taxpayer dollars would be properly utilized on truly necessary and job-creating programs with adequate performance metrics. The SBA's response did not allow these concerns, and I continue to question the necessity of these initiatives given the potential overlap with both private and public sector efforts already in existence. Additionally, previous reports have uncovered inadequate funding metrics and a lack of agency collaboration in the federal entrepreneurial development arena, and I'm concerned that the SBA lacks the ability to measure the success or failure of the programs that it initiates. The majority of the funding goes to 4 of its initiatives: the Entrepreneurial Education Program, the Growth Accelerators Program, the Boots to Business Program, and the Regional Innovative Clusters Program. And our witnesses are going to be sharing with us their insights into these initiatives, and I thank all of you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here. It does mean a lot. On this committee, we seek to promote entrepreneurship as a vital part of reviving the economy, plus owning your own business is an integral part of the American dream. And if changes to existing federal entrepreneurial development programs are necessary, I'm certainly open to hearing those proposals. However, the SBA's current manner of picking and choosing how to use taxpayers' money while bypassing Congress's role is one thing that concerns me quite a little bit. And with that, I'll turn to Ranking Member Velasquez for her opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For more than 50 years, the SBA has been assisting America's entrepreneurs and small business owners. By providing loans, training, and contracting opportunities, the agency has helped create new businesses and the jobs that come with them throughout the nation. Last year, it channeled more than $25 billion in loans to small firms, provided counseling and training to over 1 million entrepreneurs, and helped small businesses secure nearly $100 billion in federal contracts. To accomplish this, the SBA relies on a broad network of programs, most of which has been established in law for decades. These initiatives are overseen by the GAO and the agency's own Inspector General and have codified regulations and performance benchmarks. As a result, many of these efforts have been able to deliver services to small businesses in a manner that is efficient for the taxpayers. Unfortunately, the SBA has repeatedly diverged from this path and created numerous unauthorized pilot programs aimed at assisting businesses in underserved markets. Since 2003, SBA has created not less than 6 entrepreneurial development pilots and 16 access to capital pilots. Unfortunately, independent evaluations of these pilots have shown SBA typically fails to properly set goals, conduct timely program evaluation, or provide adequate oversight. This has led to increased costs for taxpayers and, in many circumstances, limited agency resources going to waste. For fiscal year 2015, the SBA has proposed continuing this practice. The agency has requested $15 million for entrepreneurship education, $6 million for regional innovation clusters, $7 million for Boots to Business, and $5 million for growth accelerators. In addition, the SBA has undertaken similar efforts in its Small Loan Advantage Program, the Community Advantage Program, the Impact Investing Fund, the Early Stage Innovation Fund, as well as the Business USA website. The cost of this program for the next fiscal year will be $39 million and together constitute nearly 20% of the SBA's non-credit programs budget. Some of these pilots may deliver limited benefits, and today the SBA is sure to provide the committee with anecdotes and maybe even some hard data of their success. The real question is why spend money on initiatives that lack the proven track record and safeguards that the other SBA programs have. This makes no sense. Initiatives like the Small Business Development Centers are recognized delivery mechanism for nearly every entrepreneurial development pilot program the agency has created. Why not use it? Programs on the books, like the New Markets Venture Capital Program, duplicate the SBA's new SBIC initiatives, but have wasted away due to a lack of funding. Why not fund it? By choosing not to do so, the agency has continuously diverted taxpayers' dollars to programs that lack clear goals, programmatic guidelines, and performance metrics. Today, we will examine these initiatives while trying to better understand the agency's spending rationale. With the recent sequester, setting appropriate budget priority is more important than ever. Doing so is critical for both the small business who depends on SBA programs and taxpayers who foot the agency's bill. The SBA remains an important institution for America's small businesses. It must continue to evolve and change with the growth of the economy, but it must do so in a manner that is well thought out and prudent. In this regard, I look forward to working with the agency to ensure that it can continue to progress and meet the needs of tomorrow's entrepreneurs. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
You want to just recess before they start?
Yeah, I guess so.
We obviously have a series of votes that came a little earlier than we were expecting. So I think what we will do is just, instead of breaking up your testimony, we'll just recess right now and come back, and we'll start with you, Mr. Jepsen. And so we'll be back, how many votes? Well, right after this one, I guess, so that makes that easy. So we'll be right back. Committee's in recess. We'll call hearing back to order. Our first witness is Rett Jepsen, the Associate Administrator for the Office of Veterans Business Development within the Small Business Administration. Mr. Jepsen oversees the Boots to Business program and additionally is currently Lieutenant Colonel in the United States Marine Corps Reserve. And I'd like to thank you for your service, and go ahead and start.
Sir, good afternoon. Thank you, Chairman Graves and Ranking Member Velasquez. Distinguished members of the committee, thank you for inviting me to testify today. Veterans are a cornerstone of small business ownership. They have the skills to adapt to the many challenges as well as the leadership and discipline required to own and operate small businesses. Research demonstrates that veterans over-index in entrepreneurship. In the private sector workforce, veterans are 45% more likely than those with no active military service to be self-employed. As small business owners, veterans continue to serve our country and create jobs in our communities. According to the most recent U.S. Census data, nearly 1 in 10 small businesses is owned by a veteran. These businesses generate over $1.2 trillion in receipts annually and employ nearly 5.8 million Americans. As a way to continue to help our veterans pursue entrepreneurship, SBA has created the Boots to Business. Boots to Business is the entrepreneurship track of the newly implemented Department of Defense Transition Assistance Program, commonly referred to as TAP, which was developed at the interagency level by the Department of Labor, VA, DOE, and SBA. The goal of TAP is to help successfully transition our service members from military to civilian life. Through TAP, each service member receives core education and post-service veterans benefits. In addition, veterans choose from one of 3 optional tracks for training: higher education, VOTEC training, or entrepreneurship. SBA was directed to provide training to veterans and oversee participation by its resource partners in delivering this training to transitioning service members who opt in. In response, SBA created Boots to Business. If a service member chooses to take advantage of the program, he or she attends the 2-day course at their military installation. SBA resource partners collaboratively deliver face-to-face introductory entrepreneurship training. The instructors introduce transitioning veterans to the essentials of entrepreneurship, including a feasibility analysis, discussion of business financials, and review of available SBA resources. The final phase of the program is an 8-week interactive course taught online by a professor. The course walks participants through the fundamentals of developing a business plan, as well as other techniques and tips for starting a business. The relationship that the participant establishes with the instructor helps reinforce the importance of the SBA Resource Partner Network. The program not only teaches participants core business fundamentals, but it also introduces them to SBA's network that consists of VBOCs, WBCs, SBDCs, and SCORE counselors. With the funding provided in the FY14 budget, SBA plans to expand Boots to Business to more military installations within the United States and launch the program at overseas installations. Without any appropriated funding, more than 6,000 service members were trained in the first year of the program. We project that we will train an additional 12,000 to 15,000 participants through B2B in FY14. Participation in Boots to Business is as dynamic as the services themselves. In 2013, 21% of the participants were African American, 10% were Hispanic, 5% were Asian, Pacific Islander, and 2% were American Indian, Alaska Native. Women especially are over-indexing in the program. Though women make up 14% of the armed services, they make up more than 25% of our Boots to Business participants. Spouses of transitioning service members are also taking advantage of this course as a way to provide stability for their families. Investing in our veterans is investing in America's future. We know that our nation's veterans helped reshape America's economy following World War II. They helped to build one of the longest periods of economic growth in our country, and we know that they can do it again. SBA is committed to ensuring that these amazing men and women have the training, access, and opportunity they need to fulfill their potential as entrepreneurs and small business owners. There is no one who deserves to live the American dream more than those who have wore the uniform and fought to defend it. Thank you for your time and allowing me to appear before this committee.
Our next witness is Javier Sadi, the Associate Administrator for the Office of Investment and Innovation at the Small Business Administration. In addition to overseeing the SBIC, the SBIR, and the STTR programs, Mr. Sadi is responsible for overseeing the Growth Accelerator program. Thank you for being with us and appreciate you coming in.
Thank you, Chairman Graves, Ranking Member Velasquez, distinguished members of the committee. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to testify here today. SBA's Office of Investment and Innovation leads programs that provide high-growth small business community with access to long-term financial capital and R&D funds aimed at commercializing innovations. We do this through 3 programs: the Small Business Investment Company Program, the Small Business Innovation Research Program, and the Small Business Technology Transfer Program. The SBIC program has been a successful model for public-private partnerships. Professionally managed investment funds raise private capital from institutional investors. The private capital is then matched by SBA guaranteed leverage, enabling the funds to capitalize more small businesses in the form of equity, structured loans, or a combination of both. The SBIR and STTR programs help small businesses compete and obtain federal R&D funds. One of the key goals of these programs is to commercialize small business inventions. These programs are paramount in keeping the U.S. at the forefront of science and technology in our global economy, and in allowing us to expand the frontiers of human knowledge. In addition to these programs, to keep the U.S. in a leadership role, we're focused in innovation. During the bulk of our nation's history, the backstop of innovation ecosystems resided in the walls of large corporations. Companies like Xerox, General Motors, and DuPont were centers of innovation and entrepreneurial activity. They invented, produced, built, and distributed products, creating world-changing technologies like the computer mouse and Teflon. Times have changed. Small businesses have taken the lead, outpacing innovation rates of larger companies. Atomized pools of capital formed, and more technologies were made available. This democratized the entrepreneurship process, but has also created gaps in funding and scaling mechanisms. The SBA is determined to be a partner in helping firms work and innovate in the new economy. This is why we're taking a role in developing and enhancing effective paths to entrepreneurship, which is important to our economic growth and to maintain America's competitive edge when it comes to nurturing innovative firms. SBA runs 2 programs to address these gaps: the Growth Accelerator Fund and the Regional Innovation Clusters, which my colleague Tamika Montgomery will discuss further. Accelerators focus on startups and early-stage firms. while clusters focus on scalable and more mature firms. Both are critical to the growth of regional economies and address different stages in the life cycle of businesses. Accelerators are physical microcosms of the larger clusters. They provide physical space, mentoring, networking, and often capital to the smallest startups, usually on a rotating basis of 3 to 9 months, or until a startup can graduate and continue to grow on its own. Accelerators fill this gap in new and exciting ways, and they're growing. Our agency estimates that there are about 700 accelerators in the United States. We're launching a $2.5 million competition for accelerators. The awards are meant to assist in funding their operations and to allow more capacity to scale up. The competition will award capital to the best-in-class models and will focus on geographic areas in which financing is in short supply, as well as models that are run by and support underrepresented groups. The evaluation criteria will be similar to those we use for our SBIC applicants: management team, track record, business model, and policy impact, including identifying what gaps the applicants will fill. We will choose entities that have the best models for financial success and impact. Winners will be selected by a combination of SBA personnel, venture capitalists, and entrepreneurs. And our hope is to announce winners by the end of the fiscal year. We plan to forge long-term partnerships with these accelerators. Through establishing these relationships, we'll be introducing a sector which is historically unfamiliar with our agency's suite of services to our Resource Partners programs and our more traditional loan programs. The SBA must lead the new economy and meet the needs of scalable and high-growth small businesses. I look forward to working with all of you on these and other programs that will help us achieve this goal. Thank you so much.
Our final witness is Tamika Montgomery, the Associate Administrator for the Office of Entrepreneurial Development at the Small Business Administration. In this capacity, Ms. Montgomery is responsible for overseeing the SBA's counseling and training programs for entrepreneurs. I appreciate you being here today. Thanks. Please go ahead.
Chairman Graves, Ranking Member Velasquez, and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for inviting me to testify before you about our regional innovation clusters and our entrepreneurship education programs. Strong and thriving small businesses are key to a flourishing economy. While we know that small businesses create 2 out of every 3 net new jobs, the bulk of these jobs are being created through the sustained incremental expansion of existing small businesses across a wide range of industries. According to outside sources, 92% of new jobs come from the expansion of existing businesses, while startups accounted for around 7% of net new jobs in the past decade. SBA believes that by providing additional technical assistance to more growth-oriented entrepreneurs, our government's limited resources will be maximized and strategically focused on the firms that have the highest potential to create positive economic impact. SBA's clusters and entrepreneurship education programs do exactly this. Each program has a proven track record of helping entrepreneurs better lead and grow their businesses. SBA created the Clusters program to strengthen small business participation in existing regional economic clusters. We do this by fostering a network of small businesses, universities, investors that work to grow a related set of industries. Leveraging these resources, each cluster acts as a networking hub, connecting small businesses to innovation assets while providing targeted matchmaking, training, and mentoring. Small businesses participating in our clusters are able to access new markets, commercialize products, and thus accelerating their growth. These clusters are powerful at creating an environment where small businesses can successfully participate. According to the data, revenue of small business participants increased by 23%. Employment grew on average by more than 18%. And the program helps small businesses access more than $66 million in private funding sources, as well as $14 million from federal SBIR and STTR awards. The San Diego Advanced Defense Technology Cluster provides expert assistance with product development as well as networking opportunities to help small businesses secure customers, investors in cybersecurity, autonomous systems, and other defense-related sectors. Resource partners like the North San Diego Small Business Development Center provide the businesses with information and management assistance on key building blocks of business success. Like the Clusters program, SBA's entrepreneurship education programs help equip entrepreneurs to better lead and grow their businesses. Growth-oriented businesses face an entirely different set of challenges than startups, and the Entrepreneurship Education Program provides them with some of the tools they need to sustain their growth trajectory. Through this program, we have seen much success with our Emerging Leaders Initiative. This initiative, now in its 7th year, was launched to assist small businesses in underserved communities that are poised for growth. By providing nearly 100 hours of in-person and out-of-classroom coursework over a 7-month period, business owners learn how to refine their core strategy, gain a stronger foothold in the market, and secure more customers. A third-party evaluator found that 62% of 2012 graduates saw an average revenue increase of 45%. With median revenue increasing from $894,000 before participation to $1.1 million following the first year of completion. Additionally, 40% of participants in 2012 reported securing contracts with an average value of approximately $2.1 million. Leveraging SBA's local presence and convening power, our district offices administer this initiative while also engaging local resource partners in a variety of ways. Both the regional innovation clusters and the entrepreneurship education programs help to improve the competitiveness of high-potential, growth-oriented small businesses. We know these programs provide relevant assistance and education that address the unique challenges of growing small businesses. Thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today. I look forward to answering any questions that you may have.
I'll start off, Mr. Collins.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm new to Congress, but I'm not new to life. I've noticed from the opening statements of our chairman and ranking member that you've united this committee in opposition to the SBA's continued involvement of new programs and not perhaps funding, as the ranking member said, the SBDCs as we should. So I am really baffled by this. And so let me ask you kind of, don't you care what Congress thinks, Mr. Jepsen? I mean, wasn't it obvious to you we're not happy with you and your new programs, right? You sensed that. You heard the opening statements, right, or did you?
Sir, I did hear the statement.
So what do you think about that? Does that concern you at all?
Sir, I understand that there's some concern about new programs and about metrics here.
More than concern, but
well, yes, sir.
Aren't you concerned that you seem to be flying in the face of what Congress wants? I mean, do you really not care? Does your agency not care?
Sir, I can't speak for the other programs, but I will tell you that in my case, I think that we are fulfilling the responsibility that Congress gave us. When the organizing language in my statute that set up my office, 10650, we were tasked to provide entrepreneurial development, among other things, to service veterans. In the 2008 Small Business Act, we were specifically directed to participate in the TAP program. If you look at the program or the statute that authorized TAP, back in 1990,
all right, well, let me ask Mr. State, I'll ask you the same question. You've heard the opening statements, and clearly we would like you to be taking another direction relative to the, we're not looking for new programs. I mean, is that obvious to you? We in Congress aren't looking for new programs. Is that clear or not clear?
Thank you for the question. Our general legislative authority for these programs.
I'm not asking about authority. Is it clear that we're not looking for new programs? From the opening statements of our chairman and ranking member, is that clear, or is that somehow, are you?
It's clear you want to discuss how we arrived at these programs.
It's not clear that we don't want new programs. We'd prefer you to be funding at a better level existing programs. That's not clear to you? I think it should have been clear.
I heard the comments, absolutely.
Are you going to relate that back to your superiors that Congress isn't happy with these new programs? We're more than not happy. We don't want any more new programs. Is that clear? Is it?
I'm listening to what you're saying. Yes.
Okay. All right. Ms. Montgomery, ask you the same thing.
Well, yes, obviously, from your comments, it's very clear on your concerns about the programs, and I think that's the reason why we're here today, is to answer any questions that you may have regarding the reason why we have launched these programs, and then also the evidence on how these programs impact and small businesses. So that's why we're here today.
Yeah, I guess, again, I'm, like I said, I'm new to Congress. I'm not new to life. It just is astounding to me that with that much clear direction, bipartisan, united opposition to this agency's continuation of new program after new program, when we have limited funding, and clearly we're not satisfied with the metrics or the follow-up that goes with it, but your agency seems to just not care about Congress, which represents the people and the dollars and the funding, and I really don't get it. I mean, usually people do recognize the direction of Congress. So I guess what I would just hope is that you report back to your supervisors, plain and simple, we don't want new programs. If we wanted new programs, we'd tell you we wanted new programs. We want you to do a better job on current programs, taking the dollars we have, and again, as the ranking member said, the SBDCs do work. We don't need people going on a wild goose chase. And if you've got so many people there, you got nothing to do but dream up new programs, maybe you need less people. I mean, that would be my conclusion, that, you know, let's work on what we've got, and all these folks creating new programs, I'd say it's obvious to me, we don't need you. I'd remove you from your positions, and then I'd save the taxpayers' money. That's what I would do. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ranking Member Velasquez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Definitely, you know, personally, I've been raising the issue that it is Congress authority. We are the one that create new programs. But you decided to go ahead and create new pilot programs. And it is our responsibility to make sure that you have proper mechanism in place so that we could measure whether or not those programs are producing the results that are expected. And I would like to talk to you about the Entrepreneurship pilot program. It has been expanded to 27 communities by 2012. And your numbers are telling us that only 450 businesses were assisted annually. And this, when you look at this number, 450, and compare to over 1 million clients assisted, 15,000 businesses created at SBDCs, women business centers, and SCORE chapters alone, then we question, how do we take money? Why do we cut money from the Women's Business Development Center, the Small Business Development Centers that have a track record, that are assisting over 1 million clients a year and creating 15,000 businesses, to put that money into a program that only has been able to create 450 businesses annually. Ms. Montgomery, in order to participate in the SBA's Emerging Leaders Program for 2014, a business must have at least $400,000 in revenue, right? And been in operation for at least 3 years. Given this, I guess it is not surprised that the SBA found that the companies that participate in this program becomes successful, because indeed they are successful. They have $400,000 in revenues and been in operation for 3 years. So my question is, with all the emphasis on startups, why not focus on those small businesses that are truly struggling and could benefit from the intensive training of this initiative?
So I want to thank you for, the feedback that you gave with respect and the confidence that you have in our small business development centers. I was an SBDC director for 7 years, and so I know about the hard work that SBDCs do and what their capabilities are. One of the unique things about the Emerging Leaders Program, as I shared with you earlier, is that it provides 100 hours of in-person and out-of-person classroom work. And I know just from my personal experience with leading a small business development center and serving a number of small businesses, it's quite a challenge for SBDCs to invest that much time into a program when on average SBDC clients might receive about 5 hours or more of service. And so this particular program
My question is, why are you providing 100 hours in training to a company that has $400,000 in revenues and has been in existence for 3 years, proving that it's already successful? Why not then focus on those businesses that are struggling? My next question to Mr. Sadi. According to industry statistics, there are more than 100 accelerators operating in the U.S. with more than $5 billion in funding commitments, right?
Go ahead, I'm listening.
Even though accelerators are growing rapidly without government funding, so I just would like for you to explain to me, if the industry has $5 billion in funding commitments, why does SBA create this program and put $7.5 million on the Accelerator program rather than doubling the funding for microloan or restoring? Because $5 billion, clearly there's no such a need to create a program diverting money that should go to the microloan program or SBDCs. What gap $7.5 million is filling that the private sector is not?
So the number is actually 2.5, not 7.5 million. And you are correct that there is a burgeoning and thriving accelerator network in the United States, no question. The same can be said about a thriving and burgeoning research and development community, and the same can be said about the banking industry, and the same can be said about alternative asset management. But there are definitely gaps, and when we look at what's happening with the accelerator, the entrepreneurial ecosystems around the country, they're typically concentrated in states. If you were to look at where the venture capital and some of these accelerators happen, they're very concentrated in some states. So we do see some gaps that some of these accelerators in other places, so that everybody can have access to the potential of creating another Airbnb or another company that comes out of these accelerators. So the point of the program is to actually expand that ability to accelerators across the land.
So the SBA cannot use, its influence to get those accelerators to expand geographically. And so I do not know and I do not understand what $2.5 million impact is going to have in a $5 billion industry. I do not. My next question is to Mr. Jepsen. The Boots to Business pilot relies heavily on internet-based video instruction, correct?
No, ma'am.
No.
We conduct a 2-day course on each of the installations, and we actually use a resource partner network to deliver that 2 days in person. So we have SCORE, SBDCs, WBCs, those that are located close to the base to actually do that 2-day on training. We do have an 8-week online component that does do business plan development. That reaches a portion of the students who opt into that program.
So how do you measure the efficiency and efficacy of the program in terms of the online training?
Right. So we look at that just like we would any other program. And so what we've focused on right now is—
Can you give me metrics?
I can give you metrics right now on what the throughputs are. As you know, most of the service members, the program— I should back up. The VOW Act in 2011, which made TAP mandatory for all service members, became effective last October. So we are within the first year of operation where all service members are required to go through. So ideally, the service member goes through TAP a year prior to leaving the service. So it will be this October before we see the first group of service members leaving the service. I'm sure there's some who already have, but that's where we'll actually see when the new business starts. I can give you the numbers of how many went to the 2-day course, the numbers who have gone to the 8-week online course, those who completed the 8-week online course. As I mentioned, we did that without any funding, so capacity was an issue. We were only able to get a fraction, and the waiting lists were long for the 8-week online course. But our intent is to be able to tell you how many new starts we've got at the 1-year mark, at the 3-year mark, and what the mortality rate of the business is at 5 years. If you look at our other veterans programs, I can tell you that for EBV, for example, or VWISE, and I will tell you that in our programs there, which have an online component, our start rate is over 50% at first year, and at year 3, we're over 70% of participants who complete the course starting new businesses. So our track record with veterans entrepreneurship is very high, but we're still within that window where we can't give you a new start number.
And will you submit to this committee the metrics and the data collection?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Mr. Seti, and this is my last question. The Growth Accelerators pilot program was originally envisioned to operate with $25 million in appropriations and require a 4-to-1 private investment matching. Is that correct?
That was the original intent. That is
Yes.
correct.
So would you explain to me why was the matching requirement eliminated in FY 2015 budget request?
The program, as you well know, it is a brand new program, and
Yeah, I know that.
when we just received funding for it 8 weeks ago, and we just recently received authority from OMB to implement it, and we're in the process of running a competition to supply that money. So that was the most efficient
My
way.
question is, why was the matching requirement eliminated in the FY 2015 budget?
I have to get back to you.
Well, it is important. Let me explain to you. Because we are facing budgetary constraints, and we do know about the effectiveness of the Small Business Development Centers, of the Women's Business Development Center, of the new markets, SBICs, and for the Women's Development Center, there is a matching requirement, and they have to fulfill that. So why is it that the administration eliminated this requirement when money is an issue? So the public is we're going to have the public part of it. So the government is putting the money, but then the private sector is not required to put their part of the money. That's not right.
So the way in which accelerators work is that you're not making bets or specific types of investments in companies, just like the SBICs work, where you're providing money to platforms. So the idea behind the program, and it's actually pretty scalable, is that if you provide some operational funds to some of these accelerators in areas where there are gaps, not that much money is probably enough to get some of those companies within the accelerators to get there. So if we would have had more capacity to do it, we would have gone in a bigger way. But with what we have, we're able to do it.
I guess the simple answer here is that it's an unauthorized program, and basically taxpayers are the one paying for it after we created this illusion that is a public-private partnership. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I looked at the information for the hearing today, and I saw what was going on. It's like, you got to be kidding me. I'm kind of curious. When you started creating all these programs, did any of you contact the ranking member or the chairman to see if it was okay to go ahead with this, or did you just continue on down this road without any sort of congressional correction whatsoever? Ms. Montgomery, yes or no?
Well, I wasn't in this role when these programs were created. As I mentioned, the Emerging Leaders Program has been around since 2007, and the Regional Innovation Clusters has been around since 2010. And so I'm not able to answer your question.
Okay. Mr. Sadiq.
The agency takes direction on what programs to fund from the joint statement of managers from the appropriation.
So you didn't call the chairman or the ranking member to see if it was okay to expand your role? Yes? No?
Me personally, no.
Okay.
Sir, if I could, we believe that we have statutory authority to execute.
Well, obviously today there's a lot of discussion about that. We don't think you do.
Sir, in the 2008 Small Business Act, it directs us to participate in the Transition Assistance Program. That's what Boots to Business is. It's simply the entrepreneurship track of the Small Business Act authorizes. Sir, it's also authorized again in the BOW Act and in Public Law 110, which was the originating act for TAP. So I have what I believe was authorization, and finally received funding this year to execute what we were authorized to do for some time.
Where did you get all the funds? You took funds away from other programs to do this, did you not? All three of you. You took funds away from other existing programs to do these new programs. Is that correct?
No, we didn't. We received line item funding for FY14 for the programs that we're discussing today.
Mr. Said?
It's the same answer, line item funding.
Sir, same here. The $7 million that we have for Boots to Business is a new appropriation and a line item funding in the ED account.
Well, it's kind of interesting. There doesn't seem to be that feeling on this side of the table. I'm very concerned about the direction of the agency from the standpoint that it doesn't seem to be a coordinated effort between the agency and Congress. As a member of Congress, our job is to represent the people, their concerns, their money, and make sure that it's maximized by the way it's spent to help the economy. SBA is something that should be helping our local economies, small business folks. Those dollars, we as a congressional group are responsible for those. And to basically go off and do some of these initiatives, which I applaud your willingness to think outside the box and do some new things here, perhaps. But some of these look like duplicative programs to me. We're taking money from other programs, depending on what agency you're looking at, and doesn't appear to us to be the direction you need to go. Mr. Chairman, I would recommend that you request a report from these different agencies and probably SBA as a whole, and have it submitted to you within the next 60 days for these folks to evaluate what programs they feel are necessary, they would support, and ask for approval from this committee to enlarge their role to those new programs, and also ask in that report to which programs are going to wind down and how quickly they're going to get done, because I think it's important that we control the SBA. That's our directive. This committee's directive is to control this agency and be responsible for its actions, and at this point it doesn't seem like we're doing that. So appreciate you bringing this committee hearing to us today, and certainly applaud your efforts to try and, again, get our committee in charge of the actions of the SBA. With that, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Lukemeyer. I might point out that on February 21st, Ranking Member Velasquez and I, we did request details on the SBA's use of funds for these various initiatives, but the response we received back was it appeared completely incomplete.
Well, I think, with all due respect, I think we need to follow up on that, and
we are.
And if we don't get a response, I think the director needs to be in front of us within 30 days here to solve this problem. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Schrader.
I'll yield my time to Ms. Chu. She's got to leave here directly and go after
Chu?
the next Republican.
Go ahead.
I'm not necessarily against any new program. However, I do want to make sure that a program is not redundant and that it's authorized and that it's not taking away from other important programs. And so I wanted to ask Mr. Jepsen about the Boots to Business program. I wanted to know, you have the Transition Assistance Program, you have the Veterans Business Opportunity Centers. So why did you feel the need to create this program and also make it seem as though it's a different program?
Yes, ma'am. So it's actually apples and oranges, if you will. So the VBOCs are authorized in 2008 under the Small Business Act as well. Those are similar to SBDCs or WBCs, and there's 15 of them scattered throughout the nation. With Boots to Business, it is the track that we teach as part of the Transition Assistance Program for transitioning veterans, those leaving active service and returning to civilian life. The VBOCs, in one or two instances, are co-located next to military installations, and they do teach the Boots to Business class. But many of them are located in areas that are not close to installations. But they focus on the veteran entrepreneur who is out there already starting a small business or in the startup phase in their hometown where they return. As you know, most veterans will exit the service and return to their hometown, and it's nowhere near an installation. So the limited number of VBOCs we have and the rest of the SBA Resource Partner Network is there to support those veterans. But the Boots to Business money is directed specifically at the transitioning vets and handles, since when TAP became mandatory, we started to get an influx of veterans that come through the TAP pipeline. So where we had a few thousand going before when it was optional, now we have 250,000 veterans every year who come through the pipeline. So we needed to have a program to handle the number of veterans that would take the entrepreneurship track, and that's what Boots to Business is focused on. I can tell you that as a veteran who's transitioned and ran a small business and made a few mistakes when I was running that small business, I wish I would have known about an SBDC or a VBOC or just down the road from my house. It could have saved me a lot of headaches. In the same vein, one of the most important things that we do in the Boots to Business classes, because we do ask the resource partners to teach those classes on base, and now with this funding, we'll actually pay them to do that and cover their travel costs. The introduction to that network is extremely important because when they do transition, they're not going to leave from that installation and start a business in that community. They're going to go back home and start their business, whether it's rural America or inner city America or the suburbs. And so that knowledge and that interaction with the Resource Partner Network is one of the big benefits we see in the Boots to Business program, which is simply the name we gave to the Transition Assistance Program, our component of the Transition Assistance Program that we've been told by Congress to execute.
So I understand, because you said it a few times, about the authorization for the Transition Assistance Program, but did you really need to develop this Boots to Business program? Because I don't think that there was an authorization specifically for a Boots to Business program, right?
No, ma'am. What it does says in the 2000, it tells us to develop written materials and materials for the TAP program. Boots to Business was just a branding that we gave to those materials that we created for the Boots to Business. And then with the services, as you can imagine, the service is like a uniformed product for all of the service members, and it's modular and fits within the TAP program. That's what we've distributed to the resource partners to use, so that if you're exiting from Stuttgart, Germany, or if you're exiting from, Davis-Monthan or Pearl Harbor, you're going to get the same curriculum taught by a resource partner, and that it's uniform across there. It makes it easier for our service members to deliver and for the Department of Defense to fit it in their modular curricular system.
So basically you're saying that this really is the Transition Assistance Program, a subcomponent of it.
Absolutely. It most certainly is. If I could, just briefly, it is one component. There is a component for VOTEC, and there is one for higher education. And there is a mandatory for all people, all transitioning service members, and an employment workshop that's run by the Department of Labor. We think that it's beneficial to those who are not interested only in starting a business right off the bat, but that because it is modular, many of the people who go through the VOTEC training will come back and take that, because we believe that a lot of the people who go and further their vocational education will be small business owners in their community and can benefit from the Boots to Business or the entrepreneurship track of TAP.
So I'm assuming then that you're not taking money away from the Veterans Business Opportunity Centers, the Small Business Development Centers, and the SCORE chapters? That's what I'm concerned about.
No, ma'am. We're not taking any money away. As a matter of fact, what we had last year is we put 6,000 service members through Boots to Business, and I wasn't able to reimburse any of the resource partners for the materials or their time or their travel. We are putting grants in place currently to be able to give them a stipend and the travel money for each of the Boots to Business classes that they teach. So it will actually go directly to the resource partner who delivers the course online. That's what a portion of that $7 million is for. In fact, it's almost half of the $7 million, a little over $3 million total. And it's more specifically to the VBOX. The VBOX weren't cut any. The Veterans Business were not cut any. They've been flatlined at about $2.5 million since 2008.
Thank you. I yield back.
Mr. Schrader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, just to start, I understand you all are sacrificial lambs, so please don't take anything I say personally. You're doing what you're trying to do and help people get jobs. I appreciate that. Having said that, I guess I'm curious, each one of you real quick, what are the top 2, maybe 3 programs in the SBA for small businesses? What do you think your top two or 3 programs are? Start with you, Ms. Montgomery, if you don't mind.
Well, I believe the top thing that we do is provide counseling and training to small businesses.
I meant which program?
So the programs that come out of my office, the Office of Entrepreneurial Development.
And you, Mr. Saad?
We each manage as you pointed out earlier, we each manage a particular part of the agency.
Well, I'm not talking about just yours. I'm talking about the entire organization.
The entire agency. I'm not in a position to that. We have a new administrator, as you know, and she's tasked with figuring out all the programs. What I can echo what Tamika said is that the mission of the agency is to aid, counsel, and help small businesses, and we do that through all these
Jepsen,
programs.
what do you think?
Sir, if we broadly bend it, there's 2 things that we do that are hugely important. Number 1 is we provide access to capital, and 2 is we provide entrepreneurial development. But with the 2 go hand in hand. With the entrepreneurial development, we help prepare small businesses, and each in our own way. But then that access to capital is vital. It's vital to our small businesses.
I appreciate that. That's probably the best answer I've heard so far, if I may say so. There really is clear from my tenure on this committee, and I think the ranking member and the chairman would agree that the SBDCs are right up there, the 504 program and the 7A program. Outside of that, I mean, there are a lot of other good programs, maybe some of yours, but those are the top ones. I guess my question would be, is that adequately funded? Is anyone here prepared to answer that question? Or is that, again, out of your sphere of influence and expertise? Let's start with you, Mr. Jepsen, this time.
Sir, I would hate to comment for the SBDCs. They're actually in Tamika's lane. I can tell you that our VBOX operate on a shoestring, that our average grant is about $150,000 a year, and that's not a lot when you consider the amount of service that they give to our veterans. We only, as I mentioned, we only have 15 VBOX.
That's okay. I'm not. I appreciate the work you're doing for our veterans, absolutely. And with the limited funding, as the ranking member pointed out, it's tough to justify a lot of these other new programs. And I'm looking forward next year to seeing absolutely great metrics how well these new programs are doing compared to the older programs that are now underfunded as a result. Did any of you know if the Small Business Development Centers got an increase in funding this year? Ms. Montgomery, for one.
Yes. Yes, over the previous year they did. And so for FY14, SBDCs are at $113,625,000.
Is that adequate for their mission?
Yeah, yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, my own SBDC officer doesn't agree with you. And I bet if I was to talk to every single SBDC officer around the country and various things, I don't think they'd agree with you.
Well,
that would tell me, with all due respect, you're a little out of touch with the folks you all are supposed to be hopefully representing and advocating for at the end of the day. I think it's a little disconcerting that the agency, thank you for your comment, that the agency feels like they can legislate all these new initiatives. I guess my last question, perhaps, would be, second last question would be, Is it the responsibility of the executive branch to be legislating programs? I'll start with Mr. Saad, just to make sure I'm mixing it up.
No, that's not the intent of the division of government. Executive branch is to
That was my
execute and manage.
recollection, too. Mr. Jepsen?
Absolutely, sir. And as I mentioned earlier, we feel that we are, and at least in my instance, executing the statutes that are on the book.
Appreciate that. Ms. Montgomery?
We believe we're operating under the authority
But
that
you don't
we're
think
given.
you should be legislating, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So we agree on one thing anyway so far on the panel today. That's what's allowed. But as some of my colleagues have said, both sides of the aisle, we're obviously in some disagreement. What is prohibiting you all from coming to this committee after you dream up, or not, that sounds inappropriate, come up with an excellent new program and getting our consent or buy-in? I mean, most good businesses, every small business I've been involved in, usually come up with an idea, you got to get the team involved and have them support it, otherwise it goes down. So what is preventing you from coming to us about the Boots program or the Entrepreneurial Growth Program or whatever? Why have you not come before us and said, hey, we'd like to pursue this, we think it's under our statutory authority, do you agree, since we sort of make the statutes? Mr. Jepsen.
Sir, happily. I'll be honest, with Boots to Business, we felt like we were implementing the statute that Congress had passed. We thought that we had we still believe that we have legislative authority. It's very clear in several places.
You've all been very clear, but why not come and make sure that we agree with what your interpretation is?
Sure, I think we have. I must be missing the disconnect on where, if we have statutory authority and appropriation, that we haven't coordinated with it.
Statutory authority is I'll be done here real quick, Mr. Chairman. I apologize. Statutory is your interpretation. Supreme Court interprets a lot of things we never intend, and with all due respect, so do the agencies. I know it's with good intentions. The real world is we're the people that should be deciding what happens or not, whether or not it's a good idea or not. We are the people that are elected. You are unelected people. You're unelected officials, and I appreciate you're willing to serve. Public service is tough these days, whether you're on this side of the dais or your side of the dais, but it's our job, not yours, to come up with the programs that should be going forward. And if they're not what we're wanting, and you've heard uniformly no one is supporting any of the programs that you've come up with, seems to me the logical thing would be to go back to the legislators, the people who you agree should be legislating, and say, is this a correct interpretation of where we should be going? With that, I yield back, and I appreciate you coming all before us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I believe I am the last, so we're almost at the end. I appreciate you coming here. I appreciate the candor within the exchange. And look, having spent my career with small business, I understand the need for constant innovation and coming up with new ideas. I think what we're hearing today is the innovation within the SBA, within the agency, needs to fall underneath the guidance of this body, of the people here. There needs to be measurement, and we touched on some of those, and there needs to be accountability. And the frustration, my frustration, is where we get outside of those bounds. But it's important that we do make sure that the guidance comes here. The need to help small businesses grow and prosper, accelerators to help small businesses go from idea to startup to step out to success, help veterans that are coming back and going from truly from boots to business, but integrating back into civilian society. They need to know the lessons they've learned and the skills they've developed, how to apply them. And again, speaking just for myself, there's no greater application than being your own boss, but there's no better way to be your own boss than learning the lessons from other people. So these, while good ideas, have to fall within the guidance of the programs we're laying out or the objectives we've set. Having said that, Ms. Montgomery, let me turn to you and talk about the sense of clusters. Because there is a lot of discussion around the economy, around the country, on clusters and the ability to get people. In my district, we have a large pharmaceutical cluster, and there's a lot of small, medium, and large companies, but a lot of startup opportunities. We have a lot of manufacturing. My district's the third highest concentration of manufacturing. There's small companies coming in there. What do you see, or can you further explain how clusters play a role in the strategy of what you're trying to accomplish at the SBA?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to respond. You know, as one of the things I said in my opening testimony is that the programs that I spoke about and that I'm here to talk about today really focus on how do we help growth-oriented businesses scale up and grow, because we understand, and the research shows, that jobs are really created by established businesses growing and expanding. And so what our clusters do is give small businesses an opportunity to participate in the clusters. We know that oftentimes in the clusters that you have this conglomeration of large businesses that are receiving business, but sometimes small businesses are not able to get in there and really access the opportunities that in the revenue generation that's taking place. And so with SBA, our clusters is really about how do we increase participation of small businesses in those various clusters throughout the United States so that we can see increase in jobs, increase in revenue of those small businesses. And so that's the role that SBA is playing in this space.
Now, as far as clusters integrating with institutions like accelerators or incubators, I'll throw it to both of you. How does that play, and how do we make sure that we're working hand in hand within the different departments of the agency, and we're not creating the concern here you're hearing of redundancies and overlap and the alternative separation? How do we make sure that what we're doing is reinforcing each other rather than working against each other?
Yes. Well, as my colleague mentioned in his opening statement, when we look at clusters, in a cluster you may have an accelerator that's participating in that broader cluster. So they're most definitely working together.
Mr. Sade?
Yeah, no, I think the way to think, I mean, you can probably put the different models in a continuum of where they are. Is it an idea on a napkin? Is it poised for very fast growth quickly, or is it more measured growth? And you can map where those different models of acceleration or creating clusters around centers of excellence. So there is no duplication. These are two models that enable us to deliver on our mission, which is to not only to continue to help create jobs, but also the small business economy, just like our overall economy, is a very complex machine. And a lot of the focus that we've been discussing has talked about a lot of the SBDCs and the traditional loan programs, which are for more traditional businesses. But there is another set of constituents which are a very important part of our economy, and is either their growth or high growth. But both of those things need to be served differently. So we're working within the bounds of our authority as we understand them. It sounds like there's obviously some disagreement as are we doing it, are we not? But at the end of the day, what we feel is that just you mentioned you were in the private sector. I was in the private sector too, and the people we serve, be them in Main Street or in the high growth sector, they're entrepreneurs.
But I think, and I'll close with this, I think it's crucial as you come up with these ideas, you work with programs, that you come to us. You talked about being within the mission. The mission comes from Congress, comes from this committee, and it's important that we understand that the work you're doing, the impact you're having, and I'm going to close and touch on boots to business. The ability to help individuals and entrepreneurs is critical. But it has to fall within the guidelines of what we're laying out here. I think that's important. We have a program in my state, in my district, a Veterans Rapid Employment Initiative. It's a 2-week simple program, but it's introducing veterans to new ideas, new opportunities that they may not have seen before. Stuff working and partnering, public-private sector partnership, where you can do that. Bring it to us, highlight it, celebrate it, and get us behind it, but make sure it's coming from our direction and not outside on the own initiative. With that, I'll yield back. Thank you again.
With that, I want to thank you all for participating today. It's evident that both the committee and SBA want to bolster the growth and development of entrepreneurs around this country. However, with limited federal funds, the committee has to ensure that necessary programs remain intact while advocating for the elimination of those that are just simply redundant or ineffective. With that, I'd ask unanimous consent. The members have 5 legislative days to submit statements and supporting materials for the record. Without objection, That's so ordered. And with that, the hearing's adjourned. Thank you.